Holly Bellabono here with the Cell Entrepreneur Network and Cell Business Systems. Let's talk about core values and how they impact strategy and decision making. A lot of people might think they don't have anything to do with decision making. You use your skills, your intuition, your resources from your education and the curriculum that you studied to make decisions. But you know what? Core values actually have a lot to do with how you make daily decisions and both short-term and long-term strategies. So, when I ran my herbal apothecary, one of my values was being environmentally friendly. I sourced my ingredients from a well respected vendor. I grew and harvested many of my own plants. I used organic gardening methods. I brought on interns and apprentices to share knowledge and train them in the natural products industry. And I held a strong belief that my products were beneficial. However, the packaging bothered me. Even as I kept the packaging as minimal as possible, I was still purchasing tins, glass bottles, jars with plastic lids, and labels that came on long spools of plastic backing. I knew that the industry was rife with waste and trash, and that much of what I was making, once it was used, would end up in a landfill somewhere. And this unnerved me. I considered alternatives such as clay jars or pottery jars with cork lids for my salves, but this was untenable on a large scale. I asked vendors to ship items to me using corn peanuts instead of styrofoam, and I requested paper infill whenever possible, and I used the paper in my wood stove in the winter. But it it jarred me. The packaging industry was not up to par with my sustainable goals. And the value, this desire to be eco-friendly, it drove many of my decisions. And in fact, in the end, it really did limit my growth as a company, which I'm not sad about. I conscientiously chose to remain small and have a lesser environmental impact rather than grow in such a way that would compromise my ideals. Many companies will grow despite their environmental impact or despite their negative social impact. They operate with values that don't include animal welfare or waste reduction or fair hiring practices. Many companies don't operate with any values at all. But for those who do, balancing their values with company growth and profit is a never-ending challenge, or at the very least, it's a constant conversation about sustainability leadership and corporate social responsibility, known as CSR. Today, thankfully, there are many more options for environmentally friendly packaging. I have found, for example, Eco Enclose, a B Corp company that produces high quality, 100% post-consumer materials that I would have loved to have had as a vendor when I ran my business. These choices make holding on to a value easier, but it's still essential to weigh the pros and cons with every decision that your company makes, from choosing a vendor to sourcing an ingredient to hiring a new employee. How do your values fit into this context, into this decision? Do your values interfere with making a profit? They might. It's a hard conversation. In these instances, you must communicate with all of your team members and partners and all of your stakeholders to ascertain how much interference is acceptable versus how strongly you will advocate for your values. It's a constant question, and it's worth many, many ongoing conversations. No decision should be weighed without this context. And once you've made a decision, you must be prepared to defend it. Sustainability leaders and CEOs must ascertain whether there is willingness and capacity in your company and then create a strategy that addresses challenges based on this. It is never easy, but it doesn't have to be hard. It requires discussions among C-suite and team members that explore alignment and meaning. It requires looking at all your departments and assessing how they meet your value standards, taking those departments out of their little silos and actually integrating them together in a value capacity. And it means coming back to these questions again and again without feeling like retackling the theme of core values is a failure, because it actually means you're doing it right. Companies need to re-up and re-establish their core values over and over time. And it's a sign of a maturing, well-run company that looks at its core values as an ongoing investment. Part of our work as companies is to be a force for good, which is the slogan of B Lab, the nonprofit entity that assesses and certifies companies to be B Corps. Balancing good with solvency can be tricky, and this is where having company values serves as a foundation for decision making. Values can't just be a list of words that you put on your website. Instead, it takes real work and dialogue within a team, all the way from executives to field workers, to identify what's really important, what's shared, and what will serve as a guidepost for all the decisions yet to come. Decisions that are value driven include hiring practices, transparency, tackling this market instead of that, how to warehouse your products and how to ship them, whether to be an employee-owned company such as King Arthur Baking Company, or whether to operate with key advisory groups made up of customers, such as the chocolate maker Equal Exchange. Nearly every decision made by a company reflects its values or its lack of values. Identifying and establishing core values is key, and this will help smooth the rough bumps of decision making and managing along a very rocky path. As a natural and organic business consultant, I specialize in leading in-person retreats, workshops, and trainings where executives and/or team members come together to identify and expand core values and purpose. Creating a mission statement is never enough. To keep teams healthy and engaged, your company must invest in the ongoing process of exploring and identifying core values. And to propel your company forward with both employee retention and customer love, you should consider implementing a meaningful purpose throughout. What does this look like? I can help with assessments, trainings, curricula, HR resources, and implementation strategies that strengthen team unity. Contact me for more.